Talks on Saturday. The KCNA cites a statement issued under the name of Vice Foreign Minister Choi Sun-hee.
Falling prices of farm products coupled with weak consumer demand have dragged South Korea's annual inflation into negative territory for the first time.
And South Korea braces for yet another typhoon expected to hit the peninsula on Thursday. Typhoon Mitag is forecast to bring heavy rain and strong winds to the nation's southern coast. NEWSCENTER begins now.
Good evening to our viewers in Asia and hello to others watching from around the world. Welcome to Arirang News Center live from Seoul. I'm Han Daeun.
And I'm Noah Lam. Welcome to the program. Our top story this evening. President Moon Jae-in has said a strong defense for South Korea is what fuels efforts for peace on the Korean Peninsula.
He was addressing a ceremony to mark the 71st Armed Forces Day, which was held in the southeastern city of Daegu. Our Shin Se-min starts us off.
South Korea's commander-in-chief has promised to make the nation's defense forces stronger than before. Addressing the 71st Armed Forces Day ceremony, President Moon Jae-in said the nation's strong military is the driving force behind the Korean peace process.
평화는 지키는 것이 아니라 만들어내는 것입니다. 우리 군의 철통 같은 안보가 대화와 협력을 뒷받침하고 항구적 평화를 향해 담대하게 걸을 수 있게 합니다.
Praising the military's courage and dedication, the president said South Korea was able to reduce border tensions through the military's determination to realize the inter-Korean military agreement. He also thanked the country's sharp readiness for allowing the leaders of the two Koreas and the U.S. to stand and cross the military demarcation line. Looking ahead, the president promised an even more prepared military.
누구도 넘볼 수 없는 안보 태세를 갖추겠습니다. 평화와 번영의 초석이 되겠습니다.
Moon also said his administration will realize the Defense Reform 2.0 initiative, partly preparing for the takeover of wartime operational control of its troops from the U.S. The president added that the government has allocated a larger chunk of its budget to defense next year and said it plans to spend over $42 billion in develop a more accurate missile defense system, brand new submarines, spy satellites, and quasi-aircraft carriers. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
This year's ceremony was starkly different compared to last year, and the message portrayed at the event comes at a time when the country needed reassurances about its defense capabilities. Our Kim Ji-yeon has the highlights of this year's Armed Forces Day national event.
A ceremony marking South Korea's 71st Armed Forces Day on Tuesday was a chance to show the public the readiness and capabilities of the nation's strong armed forces in a time of geopolitical and security uncertainties. This is in comparison to last year, which was marked by a series of inter-Korean summits. For Tuesday's event, President Moon Jae-in arrived in a Surion, one of the country's homegrown helicopters, seen as part of efforts to demonstrate the greatness of the vehicle. This year's ceremony also stood out from previous years in that it took place at an Air Force base in Daegu, where fighter jets can be scrambled to reach anywhere on the Korean Peninsula in less than 30 minutes and operate missions for more than 3 hours at a time. As to demonstrate its might, 4 F-15K fighter jets took off on missions during the ceremony to cardinal points of southeast and west, including the easternmost island of Dokdo, and reported their findings to the public. Flags of 22 countries that participated in the Korean War embellished the sky to the awe of an estimated 2,300 spectators. On the ground, state-of-the-art weapons were presented, including unmanned aerial vehicles, Patriot Advanced Capability 3 missiles, the M-SEM missile defense system, Hyunmoo-2 short-range ballistic missiles, and the Army tactical missile system.
South Korea's Army, Navy, and Air Force display their assets, including this ATACMS.
The military also showcased its new F-35A stealth fighter jets to the public for the first time during the ceremony. The F-35A jets give South Korea's Air Force the capability to evade radar detection. And that is speculated as one of the main reasons why North Korea has laid heavy criticism against South Korea for acquiring the fighter jets, saying it threatens peace on the peninsula and in the region. South Korea aims to have 40 F-35A stealth fighter jets by 2021. Kim Ji-yeon, Arirang News, Daegu.
And this just in, North Korea and the United States will resume their nuclear negotiations this week. Pyongyang's Vice Foreign Minister Choi Sun-hee issued a statement just about an hour ago saying the North and the U.S. will hold working-level negotiations this Saturday following a preliminary contact on Friday. Choi said the North is ready for the talks and expects some positive developments. Seoul's presidential office reached soon after the statement. It welcomed the talks and said it hopes some practical progress is made soon in achieving complete denuclearization and lasting peace on the Korean Peninsula. For the first time on record, South Korea's consumer price growth dropped into the negative range in September. But despite the worrying drop below 0% growth, the government is dismissing concerns over deflation. Choi Si-young tells us more.
Statistics Korea revealed Tuesday that South Korea's overall consumer price growth recorded minus 0.4% in September compared to the same month last year, something that has never happened since the agency began collecting related data in 1965. Since January this year, consumer inflation in South Korea has remained below 1%. The agency said last month's fall is only a temporary blip due to government's efforts to provide free education at all high schools and because more diseases are now covered by state health insurance. Lower agricultural, fishery, and oil prices also drag on growth. In particular, agricultural goods prices tumbled by around 8% on year due to the relatively stable weather in South Korea this summer. Oil prices were down about 6%.
Overall economic growth is sluggish and there is weak demand. We have to take a close look at these two factors.
At an economic policy meeting on Tuesday, the Finance Ministry and the Central Bank insisted the weak inflation data seen in recent months isn't enough to trigger deflation concerns just yet. Vice Finance Minister Kim Yong-bum pointed to South Korea's improving consumer sentiment index as a reason to be relatively optimistic for a turnaround before too long. Choi Si-young, Arirang News.
The slump in South Korea's exports continued for a 10th month in a row in September, partly due to the U.S.-China trade war, but also due to low prices for semiconductors. This while Tokyo's trade restrictions dragged down exports to Japan. Our Hong-yu reports.
September was another month to forget for South Korea's exports. External conditions such as the U.S.-China trade dispute and South Korea-Japan trade dispute have hit exports to all these countries. The Trade Ministry says outbound shipments plunged 11.7% on year last month to around $44.7 billion. Imports also fell 5.6% on year to some $38.7 billion. The nation's exports have been in constant decline since December 2018. The actual volume of semiconductor and petrochemical exports increased in September, but their falling prices contributed to an overall decrease. South Korea's exports to Japan went down almost 6% on year as the neighbors remain locked in a trade spat. Tuesday marks 3 months since the Japanese government announced its decision to impose export restrictions on 3 key materials used in the production of semiconductors and displays. And the South Korean government has said export approvals for the 3 materials are being permitted only in a highly restrictive manner. It added that despite Korea's efforts for talks, Japan has not responded. Seoul has again urged Tokyo to re-examine its position in order to solve this issue through consultations. Yet there are some hopes for a recovery in exports, as both South Korea's trade surplus and the daily average trading volume for September reached the highest level this year. Hong-yu, Arirang News.
Samsung Electronics has won a contract to supply 5G network solutions to KDDI, one of the largest telecommunications operators in Japan. The Korean tech giant announced today that it was chosen along with Sweden's Ericsson and Finland's Nokia. Commercial services are expected to begin in March 2020 and run for 5 years. Most of Samsung's 5G network solutions will be used in Tokyo. Industry sources estimate the size of the contract to be around $2 billion. The firm's 5G network solutions are also used by local mobile carriers and by Verizon, the biggest telecommunications operator in the US. Yet another typhoon is on its way to South Korea, likely to hit the southern coast by Thursday. It'll bring heavy downpours and strong winds. The capital, Seoul, however, seems to be out of harm's way. Our Ji-young has the latest.
The 18th typhoon of the season, Mitag, is expected to reach Korea's southern coast around Thursday. If it stays on its projected path, it'll bring heavy rainfall to most of the country. According to the Korea Meteorological Administration, as of 3 p.m. today, the storm was about 320 kilometers southeast of Shanghai, China, and is moving north towards Jeju Island. By 3 p.m. on Wednesday, Mitag is forecast to be roughly 180 kilometers off Korea's southernmost island of Jeju. It's then expected to pass by the southern port of Mokpo on Thursday morning and on towards South Korea's easternmost island of Dokdo. By the time the typhoon reaches Korea, it is forecast to have a maximum wind speed of 100 kilometers an hour. Heavy downpours and strong gusts are likely to lash Jeju Island and southern parts of the country today as the typhoon approaches. The National Weather Agency has issued heavy rain warnings as of 4 p.m. on Tuesday for Jeju Island and the Jeollado provinces, and parts of these regions are currently getting up to 30 millimeters of rain per hour, accompanied by thunder and lightning. An expert at the National Weather Agency said that Typhoon Mitag is expected to be as strong as the recent Typhoon Tafa, which resulted in multiple deaths, flooded homes, and car accidents.
Typhoon Mitag is projected to have a stronger influence on the Korean Peninsula than the last typhoon Tafa because it'll come directly over us.
Serious damage is expected, so the expert advised people to take precautions.
The typhoon will pack strong winds at an average of 17 meters a second as it passes through the Korean Peninsula. This is strong enough to damage things like streetlights. The typhoon will also bring torrential rain to Jeju and the southern coast of Korea, so residents in these areas are advised to take extra precautions against landslides and flooding.
The expert added it's very unlikely the typhoon will make a major change of course. Ji-young, Arirang News.
South Korea's prosecution has revealed its plan to transform its investigative practices to better protect human rights. This comes right after President Moon Jae-in ordered the Prosecutor General to come up with a reform plan. Our Park Hee-jun has this report.
South Korea's prosecution has drawn up its own reform plans just one day after President Moon Jae-in told it to become an organization that gains the people's trust. According to the Supreme Prosecutor's Office on Tuesday, the prosecution proposes shutting down the special units that investigate corruption by high-ranking government officials at all but 3 prosecutors' offices, with the Seoul Central District Prosecutor's Office being one of the offices remaining open. It also plans to bring back prosecutors that it had previously dispatched to external organizations and place them in the detective and trial departments. The use of chief prosecutors' private cars will also be suspended. In line with the protection of human rights, the prosecution will also transform how prosecutions and investigations are carried out. It will reconsider the practice of summoning suspects openly and having them stand in front of the press, as well as publicizing the facts of their alleged crime and conducting late-night questioning. But more detailed plans are yet to be made. Just the previous day, President Moon had ordered the prosecution to be more proactive in their reforms by coming up with its own version of reforms.
따라서 검찰총장에게도 지시합니다. 검찰 개혁을 요구하는 국민들의 목소리에 귀를 기울이면서 검찰 내부의 젊은 검사들, 여성 검사들, 형사부와 공판부 검사들 등 다양한 의견을 수렴하여 국민으로부터 신뢰받는 권력기관이 될 수 있는 방안을 조속히 마련해 제시해 주길 바랍니다.
The Blue House viewed the prosecution's announcement positively. In a statement by spokesperson Panmunjom, it said the measures laid out by the prosecution are necessary and that it hopes the kind of reforms that the people want can happen soon. Park Ki-jun, Arirang News.
Today, October 1st, marks the 70th anniversary of the start of communist rule in China, and Beijing is celebrating with fireworks and, more importantly, its biggest military parade yet. The celebration comes as Hong Kong continues its anti-government protests. Kim Hye-sung reports.
Standing in Beijing's Tiananmen Square, where Mao Zedong declared the founding of the People's Republic of China in 1949, Chinese President Xi Jinping emphasized unity, development, and strength as he addressed the world on the 70th anniversary of the People's Republic of China.
Today, a socialist China is standing proudly in the world's east, and no force can change the position of our great motherland. And no force can stop the Chinese people and the Chinese nation from forging ahead. While forging ahead, China must uphold the leadership of the Chinese Communist Party.
President Xi's speech was followed by a military parade showcasing China's industrial and scientific achievements, including 15,000 troops, 160 aircraft, and 580 weaponry systems such as the Dongfang 41 intercontinental ballistic missile, which is believed to be capable of circumventing U.S. missile defense systems. China's 70th anniversary celebration comes as Beijing faces multiple challenges, from its slowest economic growth in decades and ongoing trade war with the U.S. to protests in Hong Kong. While Hong Kong Chief Executive Carrie Lam was in Beijing to celebrate China's National Day, the anti-government protests in Hong Kong that have rocked the city since June continued through Tuesday. Touching on the issue, President Xi Jinping emphasized that the one country, two systems principle under which Hong Kong has been governed since its return from British rule in 1997 must be upheld and is crucial for the long-term prosperity and stability of the territory. Hong Kong usually hosts celebratory events for the anniversary of the founding of the People's Republic of China, but this year the fireworks and festivities were cancelled. Kim Hye-sung, Arirang News.
The Global Green Growth Institute, based in Seoul, has launched a new index that will help observers better gauge progress in building an eco-friendly economy. Take a listen.
And the Green Growth Index comprises 36 indicators measuring various aspects of green growth across 115 countries. So the idea is that we will present this and contribute to, you could say, the innovative knowledge of green growth.
The index will be the highlight of the international event hosted by the Institute later this month on so-called green transitions. The Global Green Growth Week will be attended by governments, NGOs and civic groups. This year's event, the third of its kind, will start on October 21st. The five-day conference will look at ways to use the index and explore potential projects for renewable energy. At the UN General Assembly last week, President Moon Jae-in proposed turning the heavily guarded demilitarized zone into a global landmark of peace. And a small town within the DMZ is perhaps the latest part of that process. It's isolated from most of the country, but it's connected at ultra-high speed through one of the world's first 5G mobile networks. Oh Soo-young has more.
This is perhaps one of the most secluded and heavily guarded villages on Earth. Past the barbed wire fences and military checkpoints, Taesongdong Freedom Village lies within the 4-kilometre-wide demilitarised zone that splits the two Koreas. But it has undergone a transformation, becoming one of the most connected high-tech places, running on the 5G mobile network and state-of-the-art IT infrastructure.
Traditional telescopes gave you a very limited view of the North Korean towns across the border, but using this augmented reality touchscreen, you can see the streets and the buildings up close and even watch people riding their bicycles all in real time.
Earlier this year, KT Corporation launched its 5G village solution developed for isolated communities. Despite enjoying a high level of income and exemption from taxes and military duties, the 197 residents live under a strict curfew and are required to stay in the village for most of the year. Inside the village's solitary school, Some 30 students now learn by using some of the most advanced smart gadgets and software on the market. These also help them overcome their physical limitations.
I developed a VR program that gives you a tour of Daesungdong. I want other people to enjoy our village as they can't get here easily.
Coding artificial intelligence programs is one of the new classes offered on the school's curriculum. Sensors and IoT gadgets provided by KT are applied in other classes too, such as gym class, allowing students to interact with children from other schools. The village is also overcoming physical restraints in farming, its main source of income. A smart farm solution allows them to monitor their crops and water them remotely through 5G.
We used to be escorted to the fields by a soldier, but now I can control the switches or just look at the crops from home or outside the village without going through that process.
Other smart solutions include sensors to boost energy efficiency and air quality, as well as an emergency response system that connects all of the village's 46 households.
The smart LED light doesn't just turn on and off. It has a speaker that gives announcements and disaster alerts. So if there's an emergency, we can respond quickly. It gives us a peace of mind.
The Moon Jae-in administration hopes to transform the DMZ from a symbol of division to a landmark of peace, to break the decades of deadlock following the Korean War.
I think today I saw, and all of us saw, what could be the future, a technology-based, human-friendly village that people can use effectively and for peace.
Just 400 meters from the border, the road to peace and prosperity, and one day a truly connected Korea begins right here in Daesungdong Freedom Village. 오수영 Arirang News, Paju.
Starting today, the South Korean government is temporarily suspending tours to the inter-Korean border village of Panmunjom due to worries over African swine fever. Seoul's Unification Ministry says it made the decision with the UN command to prevent the spread of the disease. Paju, the city where Panmunjom is located, is where African swine fever first broke out 2 weeks ago. There are currently 9 cases of the disease around the country. The Panmunjom tours will also be suspended for tourists from overseas. The government says it'll work to resume the tour as soon as possible once the disease subsides. Many women across the globe today can pursue successful careers, but the level of gender equality in the employment that we enjoy today might never have been possible without the footsteps of the so-called female firsts. Our Kim Bo-kyung met some of these female pioneers.
In traditional times, women would usually support their families and consider that the best way to contribute to society. However, as modern culture swept Korea, women were encouraged to take part in economic activities, and this led to the emergence of female firsts. To show how women have worked tirelessly to realize their dreams, the National Women's History Exhibition opened a special exhibition on Monday named Women Go Out into the World. Special guests who attained the #1 title in their respective fields attended the ceremony to share their stories. Kim Mal-nyo was the first woman in Korea to become a paper hanger in 1970s, when paper hangers were exclusively males, due to them generally being taller. Although she was a short woman who had trouble papering high ceilings, she never gave up and started climbing a wardrobe to paper the ceiling above it. Lee Deok-kun followed her father's footsteps to become a barber, and out of 31 candidates who passed the first qualifying test, she was the first woman to do so. To this day, she's still working as a barber in her old shop.
I was able to do my job all these years because I take pride in myself, and I believe my work is the most important. No other work or technique is more important than mine.
Many of these so-called #1s in their respective fields paved the way for women in this generation to chase their own dreams, whatever the odds. However, there are still issues that have to be resolved in South Korea for greater gender equality in employment.
Women's labor and its worth needs to be fully acknowledged. Only then can our society get better.
There's still enormous pressure on women to become a housewife after giving birth, and working conditions for women still need to be brought up to speed, especially for temporary and part-time workers. By retracing the stories of these women who broke down boundaries, we can get an insight into how to solve remaining issues of gender inequality. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News.
South Korean Prime Minister Lee Nak-yeon has called on the government and related agencies to do everything they can to prevent the spread of African swine fever. There have been no new cases over the past few days, but he stressed the authorities still need to stay vigilant. He also told authorities to stay alert for other diseases such as avian influenza and foot and mouth disease, which often break out as the weather gets cooler. Regarding the approaching Typhoon Mitag, Lee called for extra care to prevent damage to farms and to deal with any other possible accidents. President Trump has welcomed Hyundai Motor Group and Aptiv's joint venture. In a tweet, the US leader called the $4 billion partnership, quote, big news, saying great jobs are coming back to America. Hyundai Motor Group and Aptiv announced last week that they're joining forces to develop and commercialize autonomous vehicles. Both parties will have a 50-50 share in the new company. Hyundai Motor Group will invest a combined $2 billion in the joint venture, which is slated to be established as early as next year in Boston. South Korean female golfers take up the top 3 spots in the latest world rankings. Ko Jin-young, who has 4 LPGA trophies this season alone, remains at number 1 for the 10th week in a row. Park Sung-yeon is in second, while LPGA rookie sensation Lee Jung-eun moved up a spot to reach a career-high number 3. This is the first time that the 3 golfers from the same country have occupied the top 3 places. Players are evaluated on their performances over a rolling 2-year period. South Korean golfers have won exactly half of the 26 LPGA tournaments so far this year. Recent data show Korean university students would rather find work in large conglomerates than the public sector. According to a survey by the Korea Economic Research Institute on some 3,500 students, 23% said they want to work for a big company. 20% said they preferred public institutes, while 13% favored mid-sized firms. In contrast, last year's survey showed state-owned enterprises being the most popular choice at 25%. The institute attributes the change to private companies doing more to ensure workers have a better work-life balance plus more pay. Let's now take a look at some of Arirang's digital media content.
And today we have another episode of When in Korea, or Wink, with Justin.
Today's episode of Wink, we'd visit a very special institution in Korea where they teach English to younger kids.
The monkey was eating the banana.
Is it a good monkey fit? Oh, like this. Because a lot of foreigners are curious as to why and how Koreans are so good at English.
What is this?
It's a microphone.
It's very little.
You wanna hold it? Let's take a look. Hi. Nice
Hello.
to meet you. So how long have you been studying English for, Adela?
I don't know exactly. Like 1 year.
1 year?
5, 6, 7, 8. 4 years.
4 years?
Yeah. 5, 6, 7, 8.
So what do you want to do later when you grow up, when you're good at English?
Ninja teacher.
Huh?
Ninja teacher.
Ninja teacher? A teacher for ninjas? Oh, that's cool.
Ninja are fun to be sneaky.
So do you know what you want to be when you grow up? Someone wanted to be a ninja teacher.
I know, it was Casey.
Oh, you know it was Casey, okay.
I want to be an engineer because
Oh, wow.
sometimes I can't fix things and do science.
Do you know what you want to be when you grow up?
I'm not sure.
Okay, let's try choosing together. So you can be anything you want in the world. Try to imagine. Right? So do you
지금
know?
보니까 여기 있는 사람 다 한국 사람이구먼. 저기 빼고. He has a banana tree costume.
Oh,
So
for
he
Halloween.
had a banana tree on Halloween.
What were you for Halloween?
When I was little, I had a princess and I had a witch.
Do you like witches or princesses more?
Witches.
Witches? Oh, really? Why?
I hate them, princesses.
You hate them?
I don't like them only fighting prince because it's so boring. Every tale.
I like that. Have you ever lived outside of Korea? Maybe in a different country? Is there another country you want to visit?
Japan, no. I know.
Why are you so good at English when you've been learning for 1 year?
When it is sometimes we watch videos like BBC like that.
Home time you watch English shows. You're very fluent in English. Is there a secret to the way you study? No secret. You're just super smart.
I don't know if I am.
Oh, so modest. I think you are. Okay, well, high five. Good job, Adele. Thank you so much. You're the best.
I'm not Adele. I'm
Oh, I'm sorry.
Adela.
Adela. I'm sorry. Thank you so much. Okay, bye. Thank you. No, more than surprised, actually, because they're all speaking to me in English, even though they're Korean kids, their main language, first language is Korean, and I was very surprised.
I think probably more than any other country I've seen, Korean people really have a passion for education, or at least the Korean parents.
Yeah, right.
And it's a positive thing. They're looking for the best experience for their kids, and they want their kids to speak excellent English because they know it's a key for the future.
Maybe some foreigners are worried about coming to Korea, maybe just for vacation or maybe even to live in Korea. You're worried that you can't communicate with Koreans. As you saw firsthand today, you don't have to worry about communication. And yeah, so don't worry. If you want to come to Korea, just come anytime without worries and just have a good time.
Parts of Korea have already seen some rain as Typhoon Mitag approaches.
For more details, let's turn to our Michelle Park at the Weather Center. Michelle.
Now, the southern parts of the country have already been seeing heavy precipitation, and Typhoon Mitag has picked up more speed, tracking faster up towards the peninsula than previously expected. Now, at its current speed, it will reach Jeju Island by tomorrow evening. And it is already raining in the south due to the effect of the typhoon, and heavy rain alerts have been issued for Jeju Island and parts of Jeollado provinces as well, now which will expand out to more regions as the storm inches closer. Now, the central region will be least affected, receiving up to 80 millimeters of rain until Thursday, while Jeju and the southern provinces will get up to 300 millimeters. And this time, the eastern coastal regions are expected to be drenched as well with 500 millimeters of rain. So we advise you to stay indoors as much as possible. And the nation is looking forward to a warmer start to their day, with Seoul kicking off with a morning low of 20 degrees Celsius in Seoul, and it'll be a few notches higher for Busan and Jeju. But the daily highs won't climb up too high, Seoul reaching up to 26 degrees, Daegu 23, Gyeongju hitting up to 25 degrees. Now I'll leave you with the weather conditions around the world.
Okay, that will do it for today's Arirang News Center. Thank you, as always, for watching.
Keep it tuned to Arirang for news in depth coming up next.